Talking about cladding and specifically the fact that Marconi development in Chelmsford has been found to have unsafe cladding. We're talking to Kelly and Viv there about what that's like as residents to live through that and to have to deal with this every single day. Viv saying she wakes up 4 or 5 times a night worrying about it. It's causing her untold problems. I should say that we have a statement. The MP for Chelmsford, Vicky Ford, has told BBC Essex that she's written to the Housing Secretary specifically about the affordability of the loan scheme. There's this loan scheme that's capped at £50 a month for residents, especially for those in social housing and with shared equity properties. She also says she's worked with and is continuing to work with residents in properties affected in Chelmsford, and she does ask her constituents to get in touch with her if they haven't already and if they are affected. I'd like to bring in Sir David Amess now. Sir David is the MP for Southend West and also the chair of the All-Party Parliamentary Fire Safety Rescue Group. Hello, David.
Good afternoon.
Hello. So you were listening there as Kelly and Viv were talking. It's
It was
a horrendous situation.
It'll be no comfort. It'll be cold comfort to Kelly and Viv when I say that they absolutely should not find themselves in the situation which they are in at the moment. And I've said so many times, if the all-party parliamentary group, which I'm chairman of, has been listened to with our consistent message over the last 15 years that building regulations needed to be revised, none of this would have happened. And let's face it, it was only when the horrific fire took place in Grenfell that the whole of the population woke up to the fact that there were these dangers. And I should say, I'm glad you read that out, the statement from Vicky, because I'm more than happy to respond to things that you would like to ask me. But I'm the MP for Southend West. I've got no knowledge about the developments, and I'm glad to hear that Vicky's going to try and help those two ladies and the constituents. Just as if anyone in Southend West contacts me, I do exactly the same.
Have you had any constituents approach you so far?
I've had a few. You see, I've only really got one high-rise block in the area that I represent, or perhaps there's one slightly lower than the 18 metres, and that's all been sorted out. I'm now getting a few people in private properties, low-rise, the ones that are being concentrated on at the moment under 6 metres. But I have to say I haven't had too many people raising issues with me at the moment.
You've got a meeting with MPs next week, is that right, and the Housing Minister. What will you be telling them?
Yeah, well, I actually advertise this. This is sort of the week's break, and Parliament resumes on Monday. And I told the House that on Thursday, the 25th of February, there will be a joint meeting of the All-Party Parliamentary Fire Safety Group, which I chair, and the Leaseholders Group, which Sir Peter Bottomley chairs. And we've definitely got the Minister who's got responsible for all of this, Lord Greenhouse, coming along. And I've invited all members of Parliament who've got issues that they want to raise with him to come along and let's hear about it, because the statement that Robert Jenrick announced to the House on the 10th of February, whereby we pledged an amount of money which now is up to £5.1 billion to help. We just need much more detail about this, because listening to the two ladies speak, there seems to be a huge void between when we make the government announcements and then how it's being dealt with on the ground. These ladies can't put their life on hold until all this is sorted out, and I absolutely understand that they need help and support now.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because that amount of money, when it comes through, will that be enough? Is it about more than government funding, or would that go some way to solving this problem?
Well, this is what we actually want to explore at our meeting next week. The Secretary of State now tells us that most of the high-rise properties, I think it's in excess of 95%, have all been dealt with. So the funding is there for that. I think it's very important to say, and I certainly support all these leaseholders, that this loan scheme, which is capped at £50 a month on the property, it's on the property, not the individual flat owner. I think, again, there is some confusion in all this, just as I listened to what the lady was saying about the Waking Watch Relief Fund, where we put £30 million into that. Now, it may be at the end of the day that all these sums of money, which are vast, are still not enough. But certainly our two groups intend to explore it with the meeting that we're going to hold. And next week, I think it's on Tuesday, we'll be examining the fire safety bill, where it may be that an amendment will be raised again to help these particular leaseholders. But I would say the whole issue of leaseholders per se is an absolute nightmare. It should have been dealt with years ago, the rights and responsibilities, and that is why the government is now tackling that particular issue.
Yeah, and it's a issue that affects much more than cladding, isn't it, leaseholders? But that's conversation
Completely.
for another day.
I mean, it's a nightmare. And frankly, when we fell out with the Duke of Westminster and all of that, it should have been dealt with there and then. It's a tragedy. But, hey, it's all about the cladding defects from Grenfell. And we're going to make absolutely certain that the developers end up paying for this. These costs should not be passed on to the individual. They really shouldn't.
Okay. And are you confident that you'll be able to make that happen?
Well, I think there's enough members of Parliament, frankly, exercised about this issue all over the country who are going to put pressure on the government. I mean, it's a very, very complicated subject. It really is. It's not quite so easy to get the thing dealt with in the way that we would all like. Very, very complicated. And I think that if we find these huge amounts of money, which Robert Jenrick announced on the 10th of February, aren't enough, then, of course, we will put pressure on to change all that. But I know you had two contrasting stories there. One from an older lady in sort of what they saw as their retired home, and then a much younger couple. And, of course, they're rightly worried about sending it on. So all members of Parliament will be very aware that those are the issues, that if there is a shortfall, we've got to come up with a solution.
And just finally, obviously, you've expressed your sympathy for Viv and Kelly and everyone in that situation. But what should people do if they're in a similar situation? Is there anything they can do, or is it just waiting it out until you've had these meetings?
Well, look, there are 650 members of Parliament. I'm one of them, and they probably will not automatically thank me for saying this. But if there's anyone who has an issue or a worry about this, they shouldn't be lying awake at night thinking, oh, goodness, where are we going to get the money from? They must contact their Member of Parliament, email them or phone them. Do it through the Member of Parliament and the all-party parliamentary group that I chair. We're happy to work with them and try and get a resolution with them. But don't just talk to friends and neighbours about it. Get onto your local Member of Parliament. Absolutely essential.
Thank you very much. So David Amess there, MP for Southend West, saying if this is affecting you, you must reach out and get that help that you need.